All right, good afternoon or good evening. Sorry about that. Good evening, everybody. Well, first of all, I appreciate you coming out. The administration had no choice, so they had to come out. So they are here in full force, which is good. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kevin Messina, superintendent, and I'm really excited to actually have Mr. Van der Poel come in tonight. And quite honestly, we weren't really sure what type of turnout and what type of crowd we were going to have tonight. But as I was talking to some parents as they were coming in, honestly, even if it was just one parent who showed up and got the message tonight, that's one more person that gets the message, and then they can share that message with somebody else. And we are going to record this tonight so that we are going to send it out to the BC community as well. One of the things that I really want to talk about tonight to get you started, just to kind of get you kind of where this came from and where this really started from, is oftentimes in education, but also in life too, we get into a reactionary mode. And we have to react to things that happen, and we then have to put ourselves into kind of that on our heels, and then kind of really what that's going to mean and what are we going to do with that. And really what tonight is about is just being proactive. And if something were to happen or something does happen, then we have things in our toolbox, like we like to call it, that we can go into, grab it, and we can take a few things. So really what I'm looking for tonight is that you hopefully will take one or two things from here and say, I can use that in my own life with my own son or daughter or spouse or anybody that you care about, to make sure that they feel good about the things that you're kind of learning tonight and that you're taking away from tonight. So really, one of the things too that, as you know from communication we've put out, we've done a lot with safety and security around here with like thumb locks and connections that we are doing with radios, things that keep us connected to the Kent County Sheriff's Department. So we're doing all of these things for safety and security, but we also know one of the biggest things and the biggest things that makes the difference is the human interactions that we have with either adults or that we have with kids. And we know that if kids feel safe and they feel loved and cared for in the place that they come every day, then we know that they're going to come to us when they're hurting or they see something that just doesn't seem right. And so that's a big part of what we do every day too, to try and make those connections, whether it's on an administration level or a teacher level or at our ECC. And we try to make those connections with kids so that they know that there's an adult that trusts and care about them and that they can go to when they see something that might not be right. And so, once again, more of an intimate crowd tonight, and I'm okay with that, and that is just fine. Because what I really want you guys to be able to do is to say, hey, that was really good, and promote it, or even if it's just something that you take out personally with that as well. We've gotten to know Bob over the years, and so what's been really nice about Bob is not only is his son Justin a teacher for us back there, but Bob came in to Byron Center and did a presentation for administration, I'm going to say probably about 10 to 15 years ago, somewhere in that range. At the time, I was just assistant superintendent, and it really made an impact on me. And then as we were pushing out more communication and Jeff and I were talking, we kind of said, you know what, he was such a great resource back then, let's get him back up, but let's now this time put him in front of parents and so that they can hear the message too. Some of the things that Bob will talk about you might not want to hear about tonight, right? But that's part of it, and that helps us be ready. We want to maybe plan for the worst, but hope for the best. We've all heard that motto before, but we want to be ready for that, and that means taking our job seriously. Talking with Mallory, was it? Melanie, I'm sorry, Melanie. Talking with Melanie, both educators, and talking about education. When we first started, I've been in it for 30 years now, we didn't really have to talk about this back 30 years ago. This wasn't really on our radar of what we needed to talk about, but now we do, and it becomes part of things that we have to think about for safety and security and those things for kids. So appreciate you coming out, appreciate your support of Byron Center, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Bob, and let the expert do what he does best. So please welcome Bob to the stage for me. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to profile you. You love your kids. That's why you're here. You love your kids. And if your kids were in danger, what would you do to keep them safe? Anything and everything, right? I'm a dad too. I got 2 boys right back there and a daughter who's skipping this class tonight. You do anything to keep them safe, and that's why you're here. So I want to talk just tonight about how do we support our kids, whether something violent were to happen, something catastrophic. Doesn't have to be violent. It could be a natural disaster. It could be, I don't know why they call those acts of God, but that's what they call them. It could be anything that is disturbing to a child, that raises their anxiety up, that makes them not be the kids that you know. And how do we support them? What do we do for them? You talked about 30 years ago, you didn't think about this. I remember April of 1999 when Harris and Klebold wreaked havoc at Columbine High School. Remember that? That was kind of a first one. It was a big one. It was everything. And it felt like, okay, Colorado's a long ways from here. We've got Nebraska in between us. But that was April of 99. May of 99, my son graduated at another high school, an inferior high school, of course, west of here. And it was in the football field. And it was supposed to be a relaxing, proud dad moment. And I was hypervigilant because my kid's 6'8", and he was the easiest target on that football field. And it ruined it for me in many ways. You've had thoughts like that when you hear about what happens and you hear about it, okay, it's way over there, and then it was Oxford, which is just too darn close, right? Too darn close. And we have scary things here. You have kids that make threats. You have bomb threats. And whatever else, all the other bad things that can happen. And it doesn't have to be something that makes CNN. It can be a car accident. It can be a student dying by suicide. It can be a teacher dying by suicide. It can be a whole raft of tragedies that impact your kid in a way that may hurt them. So that's what I want to talk about. And it's tempting to try to duck it. My career, a really strange career. I've worked in crisis response. And I was president of the world's largest provider of trauma counselors were available on site for the surviving employees. And we responded over 1,000 times a month, sometimes double that, anytime something bad happened. And easily, the most impactful ones for us in our call center, in our consulting team, in our network of mental health professionals who went out, they're always the ones that involve kids. And so, yes, we responded to Sandy Hook. Awful. Normally, if we had major deployments, we could keep people out there for a week or two if need be. This one, it was so impactful because it was so hard, so gut-wrenching. We never did let anybody stay more than 2 days. And we did a whole lot to take care of them because that secondary traumatization took place for them, and we felt it for the families. And there were so many things that people tried to do to help. People tried to do to help. And some of them were helpful and some of them were not. Some people created victims because they sent the message of, you poor dear, you'll never be the same. That's impactful in an impressionable time. People believe that. You can make them worse. The town, nice little burb of, 10 to 20,000 people, and they got 26,000 teddy bears, I think it was. What was helpful, what's not helpful? Perhaps the most sad and impactful one that I was involved in responding to was the Nichols Mines Amish school shooting. Remember that one? Because the people were so peaceful, so loving, so undefended, so vulnerable. So I just wanted to level set. This is what we're talking about. No drama, okay? You get all that if you flip on your TV. I just want to talk about how do we help our kids. So what I want to talk about, first, let's talk about, I'm going to give you a clinical description of freaking out, okay? It's not in the DSM, but I'm going to talk about how does trauma really impact kids, and how does trauma impact us, and what happens in our brains and our bodies, because it helps to understand, because when you're impacted by something that's traumatic, disturbing to amazingly annoying, your brain and your body work very, very differently, okay? Then I want to talk about the real meat and potatoes here, is how do you help stabilize people? And systems theory comes into play. This works with an individual child, it works with an adult, it works with a family, it works with a school district, it works with a community. These are the factors that help. And then I'm just going to recommend, because people always say, what do I say? How do I say it? And we'll get into that too. Okay? I can see you quite well. If you have questions that are just burning, feel free to raise them. Otherwise, I hope to leave time at the end as well, okay? Everybody's in the right room? Okay. All right, good. So, perhaps on a Sunday morning you've heard the phrase, "We are fearfully and wonderfully made." Anybody heard that one before? Okay. And the next time you hear that, it's going to mean something totally different to you. Have you ever noticed that when you get scared, your fingers get cold? Anybody experience that? Performance appraisal, tough time in traffic, got to meet with your boss, your kid comes home late, and your fingers and toes are cold. Hands up, have you experienced that? Okay, good. The rest of you are powerful superheroes or liars. Okay. Why does that happen? Instantly, without you having to push a button, the dumbest part of your brain kicks into action when a threat presents itself, and blood flow to your extremities is restricted. The arteries, capillaries constrict because somewhere in your brain it says, when there's a threat present, fine motor dexterity is probably not a high priority right now. Okay? I've had it before where I was freaked out and it felt like my hand was a lobster claw. That was the worst one I can remember. Maybe you felt something like that before too. That happens because blood flow now goes to your central core, to organs absolutely necessary for survival, and to the quick twitch muscles in your arms, your chest, and your legs. Arms, chest, legs, blood flow going there. What are your three survival strategies if a threat presents itself? Whether you're a human being or you're a deer during hunting season in the fall in Michigan. You have three survival tactics, right? Fight, flight, freeze. Depending upon your species and perhaps the proximity to the threat, you may do any one of those. So tigers take flight sometimes. If they're well camouflaged, they hide, and they're pretty darn good fighters. I don't know what that is, but it looks like he's frozen. Deers usually take flight, use their camouflage to freeze. Rare occasions where they fight. Okay? We do the same. If you've ever been to an active shooter training, they teach you those same three things, right? Get the heck out, hide behind obstructions, or look for weapons and take action. In that order. I'm going to come back to the dog. So, arms, chest, legs, increased blood flow, quick twitch muscles there, fight, flight, freeze. It's making sense so far. Now, not only is there increased blood flow there, but it becomes super blood. There's a cascade of hormones and chemicals that dump into your system that makes you, for a temporary piece of time, faster, stronger, and more explosively powerful. Adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol. Okay? Has anybody here ever had an adrenaline surge where you did something that was like, holy smokes, okay, I see some hands going up, yep. I got shot at one time, man. I never ran so fast in my life. I could have beat you, Joe. That day I could have beat you, okay? And you hear stories about that, right? You hear about some little old lady who can't lift 50 pounds and she sees a car accident and she hoists the bumper, pulls them out, and then goes back in her walker back to her car. And that happens. That's pretty cool. Instantly happens. Now, along with those adrenaline surges are some other things that kind of freak you out. I do a lot of work with cops, and they talk about when they have that adrenaline surge, time becomes distorted, and life ceases being a video and starts to be slow motion freeze frames. Anybody ever had that when you're doing a 360 on black ice? Okay, right? And all the cars around you, the drivers are saying the same naughty words. Yep, it's right there. That can be alarming. Where's the ambulance? Where's the ambulance? Where's the ambulance? It must have taken them a half hour to get there. It was 7 minutes. Okay, same thing can happen. Or if you're in an emergency room and you're waiting, time is distorted and expanded and expanded. Now there's survival value in the game slowing down for you because you become quicker and make decisions and feel like you have more time, even when you don't. Have you ever had it where you got kind of freaked out and you lost your peripheral vision and all of a sudden everything was here in a tunnel? That happens frequently too. And that's good because it helps you focus on where the threat is, but it can be alarming because you feel very, very alone. And cops will say, I called for backup and nobody came. That's why quarterbacks and point guards have to be able to deal with stress really well. Okay? Those things happen. That's going on. Gastric juices pour into your stomach and impact you neurologically around other parts of your body that have to do with getting rid of solid waste and fluids. Did I say that politically correctly? Okay. So you may wet your pants. Pretty alarming. You probably haven't done that since you were a tyke. And you can think, am I going crazy? What's wrong with me? Or you just run to the bathroom all the time. Is Jeff still here? Okay, you were a basketball player. You remember before the game? Went to the bathroom all 11 times. We had a name for it, right? And you just do because when you feel a threat, when you're anxious about something, and you know you need to be fast, your brain kicks in and it does that for you. It doesn't betray you. It makes it happen, okay? Guts in a knot, appetite's thrown off. That's all going on. Sugar is dumped into your system and gives you that hypervigilant capability where you feel like an ADD kid on a monster drink at Chuck E. Cheese's, right? But you're ready. So picture the deer. Muscles tense, spring, eyes big, nostrils flared, ears up, ready to go. That's how you feel. That's exhausting. After an adrenaline surge, when it crashes, you are physically exhausted, but your brain is still going, right? Okay, there's more. Taste buds don't work. Everything tastes like cardboard. That's a low priority. Now, your brain, everybody go like this. Okay? This is your brain. I'm not going to do the egg frying brain on drugs thing, but this is your brain. This is, as measured by an IQ test, or all those standardized tests that your kids have to take. This part would flunk it. But in terms of operations, it's brilliant. Brainstem, and I mean, it's not referred to in a complimentary manner. It's called the reptilian part of your brain. It's usually not a compliment. But it handles all of the automatic infrastructure stuff that happens. It makes you blink. It makes you swallow. It makes you sweat. It makes you digest. All that's happening here. Okay? That gets tweaked when people are freaking out. This part of your brain, right here, is the smart part of your brain as measured by an IQ test. It's your prefrontal cortex. It's right here. Okay? And that's the part of your brain that helps you to think abstractly. It helps you to multitask. It helps you, it's the executive function of your brain that helps you to focus and pay attention, even when something's kind of tedious. It can help you see the gray areas between black and white. It helps you to nuance. Okay? It's got a lot of apps open. A lot of apps open. And so it's the slowest part of your brain. Under the impact of being shocked by a threat, we all temporarily get a little bit dumber. Okay? Has anybody ever been really stressed by something or really impacted by something frightening, and it felt like you were in a fog for a period of time? You're a pack of liars. I don't see any hands up. Okay. That happens. That happens because it's too slow. It's too slow to respond to a threat. It's strategic, not tactical. Now, the part of your brain that takes over is this bad boy right here. It's in your limbic system. It's called the amygdala. Fast. It's reactions. It's very emotionally driven. It's self-serving because it has to do with survival. And it only sees black and white. It only sees linear. And it's looking for a bad guy. Looking for a bad guy. And it goes. So if you're in the military, a cop, firefighter, an athlete, your training will be drill under stressful situations where you repeat, so that when your frontal cortex pops off, the dumbest part of your brain makes really great decisions fast. Makes brilliant decisions instantly, okay? Out of muscle memory. But it's not a very nice part of your brain. It tends to need a bad guy. It doesn't think things through. And so that often happens. So oftentimes you will see, when a tragedy happens, you will see, brain goes off, and you'll see one tragedy lead to other tragedies, like fistfights, like pointing fingers, like blaming, like fragmentation of families or communities. You will also see some people, when there's not a readily available bad guy, or if they just tend to be a really nice person, where when they look for where do I point that finger, they go, woulda, shoulda, coulda. What did I miss? I should have caught it. You hear about military survival guilt, right? Where somebody would say, are you kidding me? You should be happy you got back. The people on your left and right died and you got back. You should be so thankful, but it's that. Or a teen dies by suicide. And the not smart part of our brain needs one factor. Well, I got cut from the soccer team. Well, boyfriend just broke up with her. Well, parents going through a divorce. Now, all of those factors can contribute, but many things are a part of it. And we can make a bad thing get worse and worse and worse and worse by letting this baby govern our behavior. Okay? So I want to give you some tips for how that can happen. Okay, so the reason I'm sharing a lot of this, and when I'm working with any group or any individual after a traumatic event, it's important for them to understand that these are very medically predictable reactions to an abnormal event. Okay? Because when I can't sleep, when I checked on my kids 17 times, when I'm going to the bathroom all the time, when I'm in a fog, when I almost threw up when I came back to work, when I was really harsh with people I love, I think I'm going crazy. And I have really smart people after this say, am I normal? Am I going nuts? Am I sick? What's going on? And it's important because research says that how people attribute meaning to their experience of these reactions, whether they think, okay, I'm probably a normal person experiencing normal reactions to an abnormal event. Whew, if I don't do something dumb and I take good care of myself, I'll do okay. Versus, I'm a pathetic wimp too frail for life. I'm going nuts. Prognosis goes down. Okay? So research says how you make sense out of experiencing this is very predictive of how you do. So it's important to know these are your kids after something scary, and you folks look pretty human too. This is probably you as well. So there are physical reactions. You don't feel like yourself. There are emotional reactions. Very common. Hang on one second. Still hear me okay? Okay. Very common. About 15% of Americans experience panic attacks at some point in their life. After this, they can be more frequent for a short period of time. And panic attacks are also something that if you fight against them, they only get worse. If you coast through and realize what they are and how not to make them worse, they tend to get better. But that can be really disturbing. And if I can't sleep because I'm exhausted, but my brain is still worrying, then I worry about not sleeping, and I sleep less, and I sleep less, and I worry more, and I sleep less, and I worry more, and it keeps going. Anybody ever had that one? Yeah. Me too. There are behavioral reactions. It's really cognitive, I talked about. Our company used to respond to 10 bank robberies a day across the U.S., and all those banks could tell you that the tellers made many more mistakes the day after than they did the day before. Makes sense, doesn't it? They couldn't sleep, they can't think. Eyes are hypervigilant. I'm trying to look at you, you're my customer. I'm trying to look at a computer screen, but I see everything that moves because I'm addicted to the movement because that could be the next threat. Doesn't make me terribly productive, and it's really hard to have relationships with people. It's hard to sit still. I'm jumping, man. My body's going. And as I mentioned before, very, very few people get smarter in the sudden impact of something that's traumatic or frightening. Because, there we go. When I work with cops and we talk about verbal de-escalation, and I did that training for nurses today, one of the things I tell them is you can't reason with somebody who's like this. Because you're talking German and they're listening in Swahili. You gotta let them talk until it curls back over, because them talking helps to refile this from their amygdala to their prefrontal cortex. You talking just agitates them more most of the time, especially if you talk too much. So, now, how many people here who are parents have said at some point, my kids don't hear a word I say? All of us, right? And I got bad news, sometimes that's very true. However, they're watching. They don't have very well developed prefrontal cortexes. That happens in your 20s, okay? And 92-year-olds who are traumatized act a lot like your kids. Some do anyway, but when traumatized, okay? But they're watching. And you've heard perhaps, sometimes it's more caught than taught. When your kids are frightened, their ability to read your nonverbals is laser focused, and your video and audio had better match. Because they're not going to believe what you say, they're going to believe what they see. That's true all the time, but especially when they're frightened. So I just want you to think about that. Okay, I want to help my kid through this. Something awful happened. There was a car accident and somebody was severely injured or died. How do I help my child through that? What do I do? And so I'm just going to ask you, how do you show up? What do you look like when you show up? Because there are those who avoid the conversation altogether. There are those who just get angry and need somebody to blame, and that's rarely helpful. There are those who rush in to rescue and become overwhelmed because of their own emotional reactions. Some people are really good on the superficial, but that beautiful smile has spinach in its teeth. Some people make people worse by handing out too many teddy bears. Coddling children produces coddled children. Okay? And sometimes we just aren't very smart in how we're reacting. So what makes a difference? I'm done cutting you open. I promise now it's time to sew you back up. So lots of research, again, about individuals, families, relationships, organizations, what stabilizes. And they find these 5 things over and over and over and over again that help to get people back to where their normal functioning is, or even a little bit better. And there's safety, connectedness, calming, self-efficacy, and hope. I'm going to go through each one of those and unpack them, okay? Safety, connectedness, calming, self-efficacy, and hope. Now, those sound like kind of pastel words. Studies and studies and studies behind them. So how do we help our kids feel safe when a threat is present or has been present and they're concerned about it? Okay? This is the number one. This is what your kids want. So often as parents, we feel like we need to have all these really wise things, the magic words to alleviate all human suffering. Good luck. Those don't exist. What do your kids really want when there's a threat present? They want to know that you're going to keep them safe as best you can. They need to know that they're safe with you. They need to know that you're not going to overpower them, that you're not going to judge them, ridicule them, that you're not going to embarrass them in front of their friends, especially if they're in middle school, right? They need to know that you're going to keep in confidence, anything that they share with you, that it's not going to be blabbed or show up on Facebook. They need that safety from you. They need you to be fully present and listening. It means put your iPhone in your pocket. Fully present. Because, again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's going to be, was my parent or the adult who's providing safety for me, were they fully present? Are they taking my concerns seriously? Or are they patting me on the head? Or are they overreacting to it because now I have a new threat? If I'm this scared, but those who are supposed to keep me safe are this scared, I'm really scared. And I'm scared of their fear. Because they may handle it well or they may not. It's really important to have these conversations, and it's not like you just have one conversation and everything's done. This kind of gets fed into the day-to-day, but it has to be at their age appropriate to them. Okay? There are all kinds of conversations that we as parents have that we do differently with a 5-year-old and with a 15-year-old, I hope. Right? There's some topics that do, and sometimes we kind of unfold things as they get older because that's what they can deal with and what they have to deal with. Little kids, it's amazing. So often I hear reports about little kids who hear about something happening, like when 9/11 occurred. Little kids couldn't figure that out. And the planes hitting the towers, planes hitting the towers, planes hitting the towers, planes hitting the towers. They thought about 1,000 towers got hit. And little kids are lousy at geography. And so they think that must be in the middle of Grand Rapids, because that's the biggest tower they've ever seen. And so it's important to do it kind of at their level. It's a good idea to do it away from the noise. And again, I'm going to say over and over again, one of the first things to do is to ask your kids, what do they know and how do they understand it? You don't need to give kids all the gory details about everything that's going on. That's not helpful to anybody. There are movies you don't let them watch because of that. You don't have to give them all the gory details, but find out what they believe, what they've heard, because they may have heard it from a 4th grader who's not a great source of information, right? And so listen to what they do and perhaps correct some of the things that you heard. But the biggest thing is you need to be able to present yourself as attentive, concerned, but not panicked. That's so important. I'm here, I'm taking you seriously, not overreacting to it. Take them seriously, and they need to know, my adult, I'm going to use dad and mom just because that's most of you, but with understanding that not all of you. My dad's tough enough to handle it. My dad's smart. My dad isn't overreacting. He isn't going to take this information and start screaming at people. Okay? So first is, how do we produce safety? And again, I'm going to say, listen more than you talk. Listen more than you talk. Let your behavior be what communicates. Because you cannot not communicate. Double negative was intentional. Everything you do communicates. Don't just rely on your words. That's your least effective means of communication with children. Even up a ways. Okay, next, community, connectedness. Again, be present. Be a little more present than usual. Not intrusive, not invasive, because then they're going to really wonder and they're not going to feel safe. But be there for them. And again, listen. There's a lot of studies that talk about how people, when threatened, draw strength from organizations that they identify with and respect. Okay? Accident happens on 84th Street. John Smith hits Bill Jones. Similar damage to their vehicles, no injuries. John Smith gets out and says, "Oh my gosh, wouldn't you know it? I'm a Smith. This kind of stuff always happens to us. It'll probably get worse and I'll probably screw it up because that's what we Smiths do." Versus Bill Jones, hate it. All right, we'll figure it out. I'm a Jones. That's what we do. Okay? You have a culture to your family. You have an expectation of who you are and what it means to be a member of the family. And your kids are going to pick that up, and that needs to be a part of it. We played that up big time in our responses. And you will now see, a lot of research came out in 2005, just before Virginia Tech, and you started to see, we are Virginia Tech, we are the Hokies who will prevail. Boston Strong, Sandy Hook chooses love, Colorado has hope, right? You see those things. That's more than platitudes. Those are not generated by Hallmark. Those are very strategic because you find that people tend to draw strength. I can be strong because we're strong. What does it mean to be a Byron Center Bulldog? Is that a resilient identity? Is that a culture that's present? Because then I can be there with you. It's also a good idea. There's some people who are heat-seeking missiles and who love drama. You know who they are. A face just popped into your head. Hopefully not the one in the mirror, okay? But a face just popped into your head. There are people who love drama better than anything else, and if there's a smoldering ember, they squirt lighter fluid on it. Keep your kids away from those people. Sorry, that doesn't sound respectful, but we're not about being respectful. We're talking about protecting kids. Okay? And don't let it be inflated. Now, if there are adults, if there are other people that they know that they respect, if there's a police officer that they know and respect and feel safe with, okay, that's a good person to talk to about security stuff and safety stuff. If there's a teacher, if there's a pastor, if there's good old Uncle Fred or Grandma, okay, intentionally seek people out that will send a message. We're taking very seriously your safety and we'll do what we can. But it's not going to make sensational news. Next is calming, okay? I'm going to just encourage you, this is a whole nother workshop, but to really focus on what do I do to calm myself down when I am afraid? What do I do to calm myself down when I'm panicked, when I'm anxious, when I'm angry, when I'm sad? And it's okay to feel those things. Those are feelings. They're good. But they can be alarming to your children sometimes, can't they? And if you're going to present to them as somebody who's tough enough to handle it, you're going to present as somebody who's a lifeguard who doesn't panic and who knows how to swim, then there's some skills that you can learn that help you to be able to present calm safety, like hopefully your dentist does, right? And maybe during Q&A we can get to some of those. The next, efficacy, okay? When a tragedy happens or as a threat is present, one of the biggest things that we feel is powerless. I don't know about you, scariest nightmare I've ever had was the boogeyman's chasing me and my feet are stuck in quicksand. I've had that one more than once. Because when you're powerless in the face of a threat, that's scary. And oftentimes when something happens that we can't control, and there are things that happen, and gosh, I'd do anything if I could have prevented that or stopped it, but we can't, we feel powerless overall. And we focus on what we cannot do versus what we can. Good old serenity prayer kicks in here, huh? And so oftentimes we find that one of the best things to help people move forward is to keep moving forward. Newton's law says an object in motion tends to stay in motion and an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Educators here, if you have a kid with school refusal problems, what's the best predictor that Susie's going to be in school tomorrow? Is Susie in school today? Because having a sense of momentum and being able to do something with familiar schedules and some tasks I can do and familiar things where I feel some efficacy and some agency, I'm not powerless, is helpful. I had one really, really stressful day where I cut my grass 3 times on the same day. I just had to do it. Neighbors thought I was nuts, but I just needed to have a direct correlation between my effort and my outcome. And so people will clean obsessively when they feel that, or they'll do something where they have some power. Have some opportunities for your children. This is a good time. When you talk about safety stuff with kids, they kind of blow you off, right? You have their attention on this day. If there's a threat present or a news report about something often, all of a sudden they're not blowing you off and they're paying attention. So this can be a time to teach them some tips, teach them some skill building, teach them some conflict resolution skills that don't include violence, perhaps. But give them some tools, some things they can do. And also when kids go through something, they don't always talk it through like we do. Okay, therapists who work with kids have a lot of toys and creative stuff in their offices because they find that kids play out what's going on, and it comes out on a piece of paper or with puppets or with Play-Doh or something like that. Give kids some chances to draw and to write. I've been over to Europe 3 times to work with Ukrainian soldiers and refugees and the people serving them, and oh my gosh, I have some artwork of Ukrainian kids that makes you weep. They had to get it out. And that worked pretty darn well between Ukrainian and English. And then hope. Not platitudes, not hope on a rope. Okay? Hope isn't a feeling. Hope is a cognitive structure that includes possibilities, pathways, perseverance, and people. That's a whole other workshop too. But here's a chance when you have their attention. How do we teach some hope and some of the values about how the world should function? Here's a real opportunity to talk about, and what do you think it feels like to be that child? How do you think the family is feeling? I wonder what they need. I wonder what we could do to help them. I wonder what you could do at school. I wonder what we as a family could do to support them. And an opportunity to teach them so that you take something that was very much a negative, but it's a teachable moment, right? Educators in here, you don't try to get kids all agitated and then teach them calculus, right? You find a teachable moment. This is a teachable moment for things that they normally don't pay a lot of attention to. And educators, they may never remember how to do algebra, but if you responded compassionately when their friend died, they will never forget that lesson. They will never forget you. And you won't forget that day either. It's a good time to teach how do you solve problems, how do you reduce bullying. If you're a person of faith, this is a really good time to meet with your kids and talk to God. If you have a different worldview, this is a time to talk about your philosophy and what you respect. Okay? This is something that kids will remember, and it connects this part of their brain to their little developing prefrontal cortexes. And they start to think about, and they start to connect what they feel with what they think, which is what we really want to do, isn't it? That's what we need to do too. Okay. What do I say? I've taught this crisis communication process, ACT process, all over the place, to business leaders, to therapists, to parents, because they always say, what do I say? And oftentimes I'll go to a factory where there was a tragedy, and the CEO will say, okay, we need to tell my people what just happened. Bill Johnson just died in a car accident on the way to work. How do I tell him? And I'll say, okay, here's a process that you may want to go through. No, I can do it. And then they stand up in front and they see the faces and so here's a teddy bear. Here's an acronym that's helpful. First thing, acknowledge. Acknowledge what happened. Use the real words. If something happens and your kids know it happens and you don't acknowledge it and you kind of milquetoast it or sweep it under the rug or pretend it didn't happen, they can't trust you either. Now they're really scared. They need to know they can trust you. They need to know that you're tough enough to use the real language and to acknowledge what happened. So I am so sorry about the death of the kid in your school, Jimmy Smith. I'm so sorry about its impact on you. Makes me sad too. And the kid looks at you and said, they're tough enough to handle this. They used the real words. They didn't fake it like parents do so often. And then you communicate with both competence and compassion. And this is hard to do because we're human too. Have you ever noticed that when you're really stressed or really afraid, really angry, you tend to be kind of a caricature of yourself? Okay? Do you remember the time we paid way too much and had a character drawing? They're never, ever, ever, ever complimentary. I kind of look like a cross between Dumbo and Squidward. Okay? High stress makes people what they already are, only more so. Just like a caricature. Right? Think about a family funeral. Think about a class reunion. Think about a stressful time at work. People become who they are, only more. That can be really good, and that can be really destructive. And that often happens when people are leading somebody through a crisis, whether it's a parent or business leader or whomever, is that they tend to become a caricature of themselves. And sometimes to defend themselves, people become very competent and stand rigidly and talk about bottom lines and the details and, okay, that's enough. And, okay, they know their stuff, but do they care about me? And so when you talk to your kids, you need to present as, okay, I don't know everything. I can say I don't know, but I'll find out. But I want you to know that I'm a smart person. I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to do what I can to keep you safe and get answers for you. You don't have to say all that. You have to present it. Or, because we're human, and especially if it involves children, we become so compassionate that we blubber. It's okay to cry in front of your kids. It's okay to feel in front of your kids. But they have to know that you're a lifeguard who knows how to swim. And how do you follow a puddle? Right? And so, can I communicate with my children in a way that says, I'm tough enough to handle it, and I really care? Not easy to do. Practice. Practice. And then the T is, and the kids are going to go to this pretty quick, but your conversation should never end with, well, that was interesting, but now what? But, okay, what do we do now? What do we do now? Okay, so a kid in the neighborhood that we always played soccer with in the vacant lot died. Is it okay to still play soccer, or is it just going to make his parents feel so awful? That's why we should never play soccer again. That's something you should talk through with them, right? Just like you have to think for yourself, how do we talk to those parents going forward? So A and C and T. I'm going to say it one more time. What you get your kid to say, or what you get your kid to express, dollar values are doubled over what you express verbally. Your primary mode of communication is, I care, we're going to figure it out, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. That's a worthy calling, right? Okay. That's the end of my spiffy PowerPoints. Questions? Comments? Anybody here? Thank you. Kevin, everybody's still awake. Yeah. Yes? Yeah.
Prior something traumatic happened, what is happening right now, and how do you explain it then?
Yeah. Those are dark days, weren't they? I mean, we have other reasons for dark days too, but yeah, anxiety rates for kids especially went up like crazy. Anxiety rates especially went up, and we have many kids who don't have the skills to have a verbal conversation with everybody because everything is communicating through their thumbs, and COVID only reinforced that. Don't take away their form of communication, but I would recommend very strongly, we're going to have a conversation where we put our phones in our pockets, or we're going to do it on a walk, or we're going to do it in some other things, because the anxiety is there, and I don't know how to ask for help. And again, it's going to be modeling. Do they see you ask for help? Do they see you ask for information? Them seeing you do that, not because you're inferior, but because you're secure enough and strong enough to say, nobody has all the answers, I'm going to ask for help. That's really immensely powerful for them. They need permission. If you're only communicating through social media, again, we all know this, you only see the perfect, socially acceptable parts of people, right? Or you see people getting bullied because bullying is a cowardly act, and it's easier on social media than face-to-face. So yes, COVID increased, especially anxiety. And if kids all kids do. Their greatest fear is to walk into a room where nobody recognizes them, where nobody says a word, and they feel alone and invisible, and to walk out the same way. And through COVID, they didn't really have an opportunity many times to interact in ways where people could see and recognize them and walk in, hey, Sarah, that's golden to a kid. That's golden to a kid. I don't know if I answered your question. Okay. Others? Yeah. Yeah.
all get through it. I'm 60, we made it. You'll make it too. These are things we can do. Is there anything else in these times since the war? My son keeps saying, I don't know if it's going to matter anyway because we're all, there's going to be World War III. That's really real for
Yeah.
his 19-year-old and his friends, which I just never had that thought growing up. I just can't imagine.
Yeah. My generation, they taught us to duck under our desks if there was a nuclear holocaust, which probably wouldn't have been really helpful, but we were pretty conscious of it too. Yeah, part of that is lived experience. In COVID, anxiety rates, guess which profile had the lowest increase in anxiety? Senior citizens. Who was the most vulnerable and at highest risk? Senior citizens. But there was some lived experience that said, we've been through this, and we've been through this, and we've been through this. Bring it. Right? There was that. So part of it is, I think it's helpful to talk about challenges of other generations as well. And now they really don't care about your old Uncle Fred and this and this and this and this, so keep them short. But it is helpful to hear that there have always been these challenges for thousands of years, and people figured it out. Help them to see the people that get through hardship the best have like bifocals. Okay? Bottom part of the lens helps you to see what's right up close to read. Top part of the lens helps you to drive. Right, Scott? Yeah, okay. We'll call yours progressives because it makes you sound much younger. Okay? All right. People that get through hardship have the same thing. They do that. They can see, what do I need to do to get through today? And they think, okay, long term, what are my goals for this? How do I want to be able to look back on it? And what have I learned so I get there? And I do this to get there. I don't want to be so worried about the bumblebee in my car that I hit a truck. And so helping them to see both long term and short. It's hard with young people because long term is next week. But sometimes you focus just right there. Yeah. You said something else. Ask something else a bit. Other questions? Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to let you know that when the whole room turned my way when you asked your question, my fingertips got cold, and I was going right back to the beginning of the PowerPoint, okay? Now, what I will tell you, Leslie, is this. We have been spending some time on this year specifically. And one of the things that we did was we brought in a speaker. And if you remember, if you're a parent, we took a full day for a PD at the end of February. We changed a half day to a full day. And we brought in a speaker by the name of Jessica Minahan. And what Jessica did was she gave us tips as educators on how to help students and what we could do as teachers for what kids are coming through the door with. And so we took it more on a micro level. And those who are staff who are in here have heard me say this. One of the biggest things that I took away from one of her messages was kids are kind of like a pop can. So on the outside, everything looks like a Pepsi can. But some kids come in and they're really shooken up, and there's a lot going on inside, but it looks all good from the outside. But as soon as you take that crack, if it's not shooken up, okay, it's a normal day and everything's going well, but you take that other crack and all of a sudden, boy, there's something going on here. So what we've done as a district is really have Jessica come in. We did some pre-work with that in August, but then we really had her come back in that February date and use that kind of to go through that model too, and that's really what we did. And that goes back, I talked at the beginning a little bit about connectedness, and that was one of your 5 points too, Bob, and that was really how do we connect to our kids and what do we do to help with them in the class. Awesome, great question.
But the connectedness, when they do all the studies on resilience and who bounces back and who gets through hardship, being involved in supportive relationships is number one every time. Okay? I consult with Mel Trotter Ministries, and they say people don't become homeless because they ran out of money. They become homeless because they ran out of relationships. And people getting through things. It's not good for people to be alone. We're in relationship, and that's how we do best. So long as we don't have to fake being fine all the time, and we can be real about, no, I'm not fine today. I will be. Within me, above me, around me are the resources to be okay, but can we talk? Can you help me? That's strength. Again, I'm going to end with, it's not about what you say so much as what your kids see. So if you can invest on how can I stay calm, concerned, compassionate, and strong, I'm good. Yeah.
What advice do you have if you're doing all the work at home, but your kid gets exposed pretty badly to a traumatizing experience that makes their self-esteem super low, and as a parent, they know you love them, and you're a safe place at home, but they keep going back to school, and even if the bullying gets better, the bullying has done so much damage that going to school is triggering.
Yeah.
And as a parent, you feel like you're doing all that you can, but you're a parent and you love you love them. But at school, they're constantly still seeing things happen
Mm-hmm.
that make it not feel safe.
Right. That's hard. Oh my gosh, kids can be cruel. Kid, yeah. Well, do it anyway. But this is where it's really important. I'm glad you're here and the administrators are here. You and the school send the same message. Send the same message of bullying is unacceptable. We want you to be safe. We're going to try to protect you, and we're going to give you some skills to try to be able to prevent it on your own or with the relationships, the friendships that you have around you. And it'll just be important for you and the teacher, for you and the educational professionals to be on the same page.
Well, this school did great with that.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's more of like the kids, the bullies did the damage. The
Yeah.
school was like, that's the thing, and like, you feel safe with the teachers and at the school.
Yeah.
The kids did so much damage with their self-esteem. That is like,
I know.
I'm asking for like what you're asking the coping mechanisms and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, where do you, how do you do with that when you've done everything as a parent?
Yeah. I think I would defer to an educational professional who knows how to do that within a school setting. You can control what happens in your home to some degree, to your neighborhood in some degree. Hopefully get your kids into other social situations, maybe where the bully or bullies are not present so that they can have some success, because you want the little neural pathways in their brain to anticipate positive relationships and success, not always I'm in danger, I'm in danger, I'm in danger. Yeah, so I would defer to folks in the room that are smarter than me and especially know how to do that in a school setting. Yeah. Any more? Okay. Yeah. Oh. Or you're just waving? You're so friendly. Okay. One more. One more. Yep.
What do you think has changed to create the probably
About 100 things. About 100 things. You know, one thing that I would just encourage you to take very seriously, if you think about the shootings that have happened, they've been in schools like Byron Center. They have been in middle class, successful, largely Caucasian neighborhoods and communities, right? It's been in settings that are supposed to kind of be the American dream safe, although fallacies connected to that. But the shootings in school, the mass shootings in school, typically have been in schools that are similar to this, haven't they? Suburban, middle class, mostly white schools. So I'm sure your administration is very aware of that and doing what they can. But you ask, what's the difference? About 100 things. About 100 things, and wish they weren't. I wish every seat was full here. Your kid would be safer if every seat was full here, right? So be community together, help each other out, because that's a worthy calling. All right, Jeff. Back to you, man.
Couple of things for tonight. Thank you. First of all, please give him a round of applause and thank him for coming tonight. A couple of things that I just want to end on tonight is one of the things that Bob talked about was ACT, right? And what we can do as parents, as educators, as just people, part of society. And the first part of that was acknowledge. And that's really what we're doing tonight. We're acknowledging that this is something that we have to take seriously. It's something that we have to think through. It's something that we can't ignore. It is something that has changed in society over time since when we first started being teachers and educators. And so really, if you walk away with that tonight, I just want you to know, like, not only do we take seriously the safety part of it, but also what are we doing with kids and what are we doing for kids? And that's really what tonight is about. And so, like I said earlier, even if you walk away with just one thing today that makes it better, that's success, and that's okay. And that's really what we're looking for. And so I just want to let you know, like, even in a time when it's been a good year and we haven't had anything like this in Byron Center and it's been good, but we always are thinking about it and it's always top of our mind. And what can we do to make sure that we're doing the best we can to be proactive in that measure too? So I appreciate your support. The administration thanks you for your support. We obviously are always talking about different ways. How do we make BC better? How do we make it BC strong? And how do we keep what is a bulldog a bulldog? And this is part of it tonight. And this is our connection together, but it's also what we do as a broader Byron Center family. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking the time. And we'll hang around for a little bit if there's any specific questions you have for Byron Center. But thanks a lot and have a great night. Thank you.